I want to take a moment to talk to you about Roll TV, our online video library platform. Whether you've been training for a week, a month, a year, or 5 years, you already know that you need all the tools that you can possibly get and get your hands on to continue improving your skills as you go through the Jiu-Jitsu journey. And that's what Roll TV has been designed for. We started this project about a year and a half ago, and from the very beginning, we focus on continuous updates and continuous uploads of techniques that are useful to you. Anything from self-defense to sport jiu-jitsu. Anything from individual drills and techniques to the full concepts and lessons from big players like Sophia McDormand, Christian Woodman-C, and Andres Brunowskis. In addition to all this, we feature workshops, seminars, and events that took place at Roll Academy. So you have access to all of this at your fingertips. And recently, due to a large amount of requests, we have opened the opportunity for lifetime memberships. No more cancellation fees, no more reoccurring payments, no more subscriptions. One simple payment and you have full unlimited access to drills, techniques, full concept lessons, and events from big names in Jiu-Jitsu. How can you beat that? Go to rollacademy.tv, create a free account, take a look what the platform has to offer, and subscribe to continue improving your Jiu-Jitsu. And now, let's get back to Roll Radio.
Our guest on this episode is a 5-time judo national champion, silver medalist in the 1986 Goodwill Games, 1988 U.S. Olympic team member, and a 2000 U.S. Olympic judo team coach, Steve Cohen. Steve started his judo training as a child with his older brother Erwin, and they both became two of the most successful U.S. competitors of the 1970s. On this episode, Steve talks about his journey, which started at the age of 5 at a local Chicago YMCA, all the way to the Olympics as both a player and coach. A journey that continues to this day with his involvement in the Cohen Brothers Judo Club. We are lucky enough to have Steve share his knowledge, stories, and insights gained over 6 decades in the martial arts with us. Here's Roll Radio with judo legend Steve Cohen.
Welcome to Roll Radio.
And we are live. Gary, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, usually we do these in the afternoon, but we're up bright and early on a brisk fall morning. I got my coffee, so I think everything should go smoothly.
Yeah. How is your morning going, by the way?
Good. I'm here. I'm ready to go. We have a very special guest today, and I think we should get started.
Yeah. Steve Cohen, sir, thank you for being here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is unusual because you are a second Olympian that we have the opportunity to speak with, and I'm very interested to talk to you about your experience of the Olympics from the participant perspective, but also from the coaching perspective. I know you have quite a bit of experience on both ends, but before we get there, how in the world your entire family end up on judo mats? Because that is a phenomenon of its own, in my opinion.
You want to know how it started?
Yeah, how it all started. How did your entire family?
It's an interesting story because I grew up in West Rogers Park, and my father, who wasn't necessarily an athlete, he loved sports, but he wasn't an athlete, wanted to get my brother and I in a sport that was an individual sport that really would take on the power of positive thinking, where you go in the sport and you're on your own, and you live and die by how you prepare and how you compete. And even though we were young, he was intense. So he saw a commercial on a TV station for judo offered at the High Ridge YMCA in West Rogers Park, local YMCA. And he took my brother there. And there were a handful of young kids that ended up being pretty good in judo. And the teacher, Ray Newman, who is a marvelous man, who was someone who gave his life to kids, underprivileged kids, a special man, started us both in judo. And I started after my brother. And Ray was a brown belt, but he was a wonderful mentor. And we had a great young upbringing in judo. We learned a little bit, but my brother was a real good athlete. And I started when I was 4.5. So, I mean, I liked being around my brother. You know, if I could play with my brother, I would do it. So we started there, and there was one really top judo club in Chicago at the time, and it was called Uptown Dojo. It was in the Uptown area, probably the highest crime rate in Chicago at that time, if it's not, still is. And that was a judo run by the Japanese in a Buddhist temple. So after 2 years at the High Ridge YMCA, Ray, who understood that he had limitations, decided that as my brother and a couple people his age got better, it was time for us to move on. And then we moved to Uptown Dojo, which was a wonderful experience, getting into not only judo, but the culture. And the way we were taught is not necessarily the way judo was taught today. The rules may sound a little archaic, the way they were when I was younger. And Erwin and I carried on some of them through our teaching, but not all of them. But it was a great beginning. Ray Newman, who worked with, kids that were challenged too. We had kids that were, we had cerebral palsy and kids that had other handicaps that were in our class. And for me as a kid, it was just part of growing up. And I didn't know they were different. They were just part of my team. So it was a wonderful way to grow up in judo for the few years I was there. And then I went to the Buddhist temple that was a melting pot, mostly Japanese, but, people from all over. So as a white Jewish kid and from Rogers Park, it was a unique upbringing. And I made friends for life in that club. And it taught me the beginning of judo. So my beginning was interesting, and I was fortunate to have that.
So it's interesting. A couple interesting things that you bring up. So one, can you talk a little bit more about these rules that were followed or not followed, or put in or not put in? Because a lot of listeners might not know exactly what you're referring to.
Well, so the rules that were not put in is that when I was on the mats as a kid, there was no water and no and no drinks during the class.
Oh.
So I mean, stuff kind of like that. My senseis had a thing where they could make a fist with their knuckle sticking out, and if you were talking, that knuckle would hit you on the head. While it was effective for me, it was something that I couldn't continue. However, the respect for the mats, the respect for the dojo, the respect for your gi, we carried on quite strictly.
Yeah, we had a conversation last week with someone whose father taught them, Jimmy Pedro, who and
another hardcore guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jimmy said that his father, had a bamboo stick that he carried around with him, and we were joking about how that would not work in these times, in this age.
Yeah, Jimmy and my brother are kind of cut from the same cloth. They feel the same way. It's hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
You're here to train, and if you're not training, you don't belong here. If you belong here and you're not training, the stick's going to come. I didn't do that. I motivated in a different way. However, I understand.
Yeah. Another interesting thing that you mentioned is that after the few years at the YMCA, you were handed off, if I'm not understanding correctly,
yes,
to another place. And you mentioned something that really kind of stuck with me, is the fact that your instructor recognizes the limitations. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this particular topic, because you do have a lot of experience as a coach and then obviously as an athlete. And often it happens where coaches or instructors, they think they can carry their students all the way to the top, even though they have their own limitations, and maybe sometimes they don't recognize those limitations. What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that coaches have their limitations, and there are people that, it's just like school. You have people that put you on the path to learning, and it's a different skill set to teach someone how to learn. And then when that person learns, developing them, there's different stages of development. I'm one of the few people that have developed kids from day one all the way to the Olympic Games, but that's a unique skill set. it's in most cases, people don't have that. The problem is, and I don't know if it's the same way in other sports and martial arts, but we have this mentality that people don't want to work together. People are concerned that as a coach or a sensei at one club, if you bring your kid to another club, it shows it's a sign of weakness that you're not good enough, rather than thinking that I do have a skill set, and my skill set is kindergarten to third grade, and after that, I need to pass them on. And there's nothing wrong with that. We do that every day in school.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have kindergarten teachers teaching upper level biology or upper level calculus. There's a reason for that. They don't have that skill set. The mentality in judo is wrong. We should be doing that. We should be doing that more often. Interesting, in Japan, when you train at the colleges, the colleges are fed their athletes from the high schools. And the high school coaches are at the college practices at least 2 times a week. They're the ones that develop those athletes at their critical time. If the athlete's having a problem, the college coach doesn't know that athlete, and the athlete doesn't know the college coach. But the high school coaches have for 4 years. So you need to include the coach that passes them off in the development process, because they've developed that relationship. So in the way I see it, in a perfect world, the coach would continue to have a hand in the development, in working with the student. So it should be all the way through the top, and all the coaches should be involved. It should be a group effort. The fact that you make it on a team, and for example, if I develop athletes, I'm working with young athletes now, and I choose now to only work with younger athletes. If I were to pass them on to Jimmy Pedro with his elite 2024 or 2028 program, I would still be involved with them. I would still be involved with the athlete. I'd still be evaluating them, and we would work together to make them great, because, that's the only way you get there. So I do believe coaches need to work together.
It seems like what you're talking about is a larger collaboration between coaches together to make the student or the athlete successful, versus this egocentric kind of point of view of this athlete is mine, and I want to collect all the fruits that is associated, all the rewards that are associated with me developing them.
Well, from my point of view, and the way I handle myself working with young coaches or older coaches that only work with beginners, I give them the highest praise. They have an important role. I have a guy in Ohio that runs a program that has 150 students. He's got 30 girls, 7 years old and under. He does an incredible job of getting people in the door and getting them excited about judo. Developing them to the next stage after they start and they learn how to fall and learn their basics, he doesn't do well. He understands that, and he wants to pass them on from there. That's the way you have to do it. And he needs to be praised. He has 150 students. That's a big club. It's hard to get 150 kids in your door, and he does a great job. And we need to learn from him and get more people like him. There has to be a system. There has to be a system, and we have to work together. So yeah, their ego gets in the way. It's a problem. And
so does the system exist right now, or
in judo? No, it does not exist.
Why do you think that happens?
Well, so when Jimmy Pedro was younger, there was a system where there was a junior program that, as people started being successful in the juniors, they made a national team, so to speak. And it wasn't a one-person team. It was a lot of kids that were in the top 5. And we had national camps all the time for those kids. And the coaches could come and see those kids and develop those kids as a group. And we combined those junior camps with the senior camps. So the junior kids got to train with the senior kids and got to feel them. And at that time, we had a really strong senior team. And it was a real good program. And my nephews developed in there. Jimmy developed in there. And I used it a lot for my students. And it was a great program. That no longer exists. And it's a shame it doesn't. And, when I talk to Jim, it's something that we need to bring back.
Yeah, I think that it's really one of the only ways is if we start working together, because I'd be, talking about Jimmy a little bit more. He doesn't see a very bright future for judo, unfortunately. And the only way I think is if those systems come back into play. I don't see the individual schools carrying it on so much. I think it needs to be a collaboration.
Well, the schools have to have a collaboration too, and I'll tell you how I view it now, and what I'm working on is that the schools have got to have a collaboration, and they have to train together. So you have people in the Midwest. The people in the Midwest, once a month, they should go to one center and have a weekend training center. So they all get to exposed, and they get 30 or 40 rounds of randori, which is free practice. And your coaches are there. You get the videotape, and you work together. The coaches work together. You help the coaches, and you help the students, and we go back. And then through that collaboration, you talk about what tournaments you're going to go to. I mean, judo tournaments have gotten so small now that you go there and you have one or two matches. If you collaborate with the coaches and everyone goes to the local tournaments, all of a sudden you're getting 6 matches in a tournament, and you get that, that competitive feeling. So, I mean, it's got to come from a collaboration at the grassroots level if we're going to build it up.
Yeah, that's something Jimmy talks about quite a lot, actually. Yeah. He's quite outspoken about it, is that limited or even no system at all right now, which is makes it very different to what exists in Europe when it comes to judo, right? Especially these collaborative meetings where they meet, for a weekend or even a week from different countries, and they work together to really develop the skill set and give these athletes platform to exhale and just go up and become what they need to become before these huge competitions.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting, if you got a second for a historical
Please
story.
Do.
Oh, yeah.
1969 World Championships, Japan won every single division. Every division. The next competition, international competition after that, was going to be the 72 Olympics in Munich. After the 69 Worlds, the European Union got together and said, you know something? We're trying to beat the Japanese by being like them. And that doesn't make sense to us. So instead of going to Japan and training all the time, we're going to work together and train with each other. And we're going to give every athlete a Eurail pass. And we're going to have camps in Germany and Austria and Hungary and, in the Soviet Union and in France and, all over. And everyone's going to go, and we're going to train with each other. And we're going to make ourselves better. Beating Japan at their style is something that's really hard to do. We need to have a style that beats them. And that's what they did. And sure enough, in 1972, there's 7 divisions. 3 of them were won by Europe. And it was it was a surprise, but it showed what they did worked. Mm-hmm. And as it came about, France became a powerhouse, Germany a powerhouse, and sometime, Great Britain was a powerhouse. Japan is still a powerhouse, but we've got players around the world that can beat them. So it's interesting how it started, and that's the way it is.
Do you think it's maybe because here in the States we're a little more isolated? We don't have, or is it just that we're not traveling to Michigan, Indiana from the Midwest? We can travel all over.
We don't have a system. We don't have I'll go to the very bare bones of it. When I was younger, there was a judo magazine that came out when I was young, 8, 9, and 10. That had every month it came out, and it said what was going on in Japan and Europe and in the United States. And there were times I got to see my name in there, and sometimes my picture. As a matter of fact, when I was 16, there were 3 magazines, and my picture was on the cover of all 3. How great is that there's a magazine where you could read about it? Today, there's nothing. There's no information. Even with the internet, there's no information.
This is mind-blowing to me. I mean, I don't understand how this is even possible.
Yeah.
I mean, judo, what is it, second biggest sport in the world?
Yeah.
And we are on the verge of it disappearing in the United States. And you're talking about simple things like print, having a paper or a magazine, which drove some of that attention and some of the passion between the athletes and students. And now we have internet, social media, everything is on our phones. How is it possible that we don't have that exposure for a beautiful sport like this? I just don't get it.
Well, it comes from the leadership.
What are we doing wrong?
Well, Jimmy's sitting at home, and Jimmy's the kind of guy that I think would be a great leader in U.S. judo. Having someone that's got a vision, knows how to get there, has been there, and knows how to get there. I don't think it's difficult. You've got to build a grassroots program, and you got to get people excited about judo. It's very interesting because 2 female judokas, world champions, 2 years ago, 17 years old. Daria Bilodid, and I think it's Uda Abe.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, both girls are gorgeous. They're insane judo players, phenomenal. You would think as a kid, if you're a fan of judo, you'd have their poster on your wall. No one knows they exist. I mean, what an opportunity missed. And they're phenomenal judo players.
Yeah, the only place you'll see them is in judo posts. You know, you don't see them outside of the judo posts, where
Right.
you would see athletes that are like them. You know,
Yeah,
if they were in tennis or something else, you know, you would see them all over the place.
Without a doubt. Now, Daria Bilodid seems to be a model now, and she's all over the place in Europe.
Yeah.
Maybe Japan, in Europe. But it's opportunities missed like that can get people excited about judo. You know, and it's interesting. When my brother and I had our program, you know, even when we started, no one was doing organized sports. You know, people weren't used to paying for an organized sport. No, everybody pays for organized sports, and they pay top dollar. If you're a wrestler, if you're a baseball player, a football player, you're paying for extra training, your private coaching, batting coaching, fielding, you know, hockey. I mean, what that costs. I mean, people are interested in being involved, but they have to know that there's value for the money they're paying. And we need to provide a program that gives value. And that's where we're missing big time in judo.
Do you think it's the vicious circle of people not seeing the value and not willing to pay for it, for those programs? And then as a consequence of it, there's no program because there is no money flowing into the system. And obviously, as a result of it, coaches are not getting paid, dojos are not existing, and everything's kind of falling apart.
Well, it starts at the top. I mean, there's got to be a drive, you know, it all comes from money. And in judo, there's only one way we're going to get money, and that's by increasing our membership. We're not going to get some guy to give us $10 million as an, to endorse judo. That's just not going to happen. What we need to do is really build our membership, and we need to double it, and then double it again, and double it again. And that's where we will start getting money in and getting people in. And it's one thing when you have 2,000 people reading a magazine, but when you have 20,000, all of a sudden people get interested. And then when you have 40,000, they get interested. There's close to 1 million judo players right now in France. 1 million.
Yeah,
you know, think about that.
Some of the countries in Europe are
it's huge. It's huge. We, you know, in the United States, we do a very, very poor job of promoting judo. There's a video that I have that I put on Facebook a few times, and I haven't been posting for quite some time, but about France and how they market judo. And it's amazing how they market as something that's so good for your life, your body, your mind. They don't get to the physical aspect till they go down the road of all the things it does for you. And I remember when I was in France, and I've been all over France, when I go into a market or a gas station or anywhere, you know, I say I'm a judoka, and never is there a time that someone in France doesn't go, me too, or my son, or my nephew, or someone. You know, it's different there.
It certainly is.
So it was a lot more popular in the 70s, right?
Let me give you an example. You know, after the Olympics in 2000, I took some time off, close to 20 years. I was tired. You know, I had to make a life for myself because judo's doesn't pay your bills that well. And I left for a while. Before then, my brother and I had been very involved in running camps and tournaments, and we ran a national championship. And at that time, the USJA Nationals, which we ran and we went to every year, they had 1,500 competitors there. It was a great tournament. It was a 2-day tournament. People from Puerto Rico, Canada, you know, all over the world, they'd come. It was a great tournament, and it was tough to win. So when I came back, my first trip back, and I went to a competition in Michigan, which was the USJF and USJA Nationals combined, there were like 250 competitors. And I'm going, my God, what happened? We just don't have the people. You know, we've lost them, and it's a shame. So it's changed dramatically. So, I mean, we need to build up our membership.
Yeah, well, it's something that's going to take time, unfortunately, right? That's the slow process, but it all starts with the leadership that you mentioned a moment ago. Let's switch gears just a little bit to what it used to be. Let's talk about your Olympic experience. A lot of people might not know this, but you are quite accomplished, actually, and from the athlete perspective and from coaching perspective. You mentioned already Jimmy Padro, which we had on the show just recently. By the way, because I'm going to forget this, can you send us the link to the video you just talked about? We'll put it on our social media, because I'm very passionate about judo, and my experience with judo is very, very shallow. I mean, this is, thanks to Jim McGurven, obviously we are connecting with you and others and all that, and he's running a beautiful program at our academy. But I'm very passionate about it, so I want to post that link. I want to make sure that people see it.
I'll send you another link. The World Championship final match with Jimmy and Russian, which is quite an exciting match when Jimmy won the Worlds.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure you'll enjoy watching that.
Yeah, we'll post them both.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely.
Sure.
Let's talk about your Olympic experience, and I'm not necessarily talking about the matches themselves, but really what it takes. We talked to Jimmy about this too. What does it take to become an Olympian? And obviously, Jimmy's experience is more recent. Yours goes, a few years back. But I'm really curious how things have changed over time and what your experience was when you were going through it.
So before, I had two careers in judo. Okay, I retired from judo in 1977 and went on a different path.
Mm-hmm. Thomas and I were just talking about this.
I was national champion several times leading up to the 76 Olympic trials, and due to the way they had the rules, it didn't benefit me very well the way the rules were. I don't have to get into it, but I felt I wasn't treated fairly in those trials. And I didn't make it to the Olympic Games. The previous year, World Championships, I beat the number 3 Frenchman in the world, and I was close to medaling. So I was really excited about having a chance, and I was, pretty near as good as I was going to be. So I was quite down from there, pretty hurt, and I stayed in one more year, and I won the national championships. I went to Israel for the Maccabiah Games and won that, and then I moved on with my life. So the story is there's another athlete that I'm very, very close with that I don't know if you know or not. His name is Bob Berland.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Berland, Erwin and I started at a local JCC. He was with us like a little brother most of our lives, still is. And in 1984 Olympics, I went there to help coach him for the Olympic Games. And he took a silver medal. And it was one of the highlights of my life because I raised him, mm-hmm. and I love him to death. And after the Olympics, he says, "Will you do something for me?" And I said, "How do I refuse you right now? What do you want me to do?" He says, "I want you to come out of retirement, and I want you to be on the 88 team with me." I have a note that he wrote me. Yeah, and he wrote that note to me, and I still have it. And I said, "Well, I don't know what to do." He goes, "You can't say no to me." So I went home and discussed it with my wife. And she agreed, and that was my time to come back. I trained for a year and won the national championships in 1985, and then I remained number 1 and made the Olympic team in '88. So
wait a minute. Go back to that point, because this is huge. This is monumental, flipping directions in your life.
Yes.
Right. Somebody comes to you and say, "Listen, I want you to do this." And really, I don't want to hear no. You really don't have a choice right now. And so what are your thoughts going through your mind at that moment?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you that I did get double and triple teamed by my brother and a few other people in the organization. But nonetheless, it was Bobby that came to me and he said, "I really want you to do this for me because I want to be on a team with you." And we're very close, and it pushed me to start training.
Did your wife think you're completely crazy?
My wife thought I was crazy, but God bless her, she supported me. And I had 3 kids at the time. My son was born in July of 1984, and I was gone at the Olympics, I think, in August. So that's how my son was a newborn. So when you want to get into the sacrifice, what it takes to be an Olympian, some people sacrifice more than others. Mm-hmm. I had to leave my family for quite a lot of time when my family was young, and I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was traveling all the time. It was a tough decision, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my wife. and my brother, of course, but my wife, took the brunt of everything, and she raised the kids when I wasn't home, and obviously when I was home, I was training.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was working, so it's a huge sacrifice. If you want to be the best, truly be the best, it does not come without sacrifice. Now, maybe when it's all said and done, people will say, you know what, it was worth it. It wasn't that bad, but trust me, being away from my family for a long time was hard.
Oh, I'm sure it's two-way street too. I'm sure your wife will say the same thing. You not being there was very difficult on the family.
Without a doubt. Right.
Yeah, so not only you sacrificing, but also everybody around you.
Oh, without a doubt.
Support network is sacrificing as well.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that whenever I talk to Jimmy's wife, who is wonderful, Marie, she never leaves me without thanking me and my wife for the sacrifice we made for Jimmy, because we had to leave. Jimmy had to leave his family, and I left my family to be with him. So she understands. It's a big sacrifice.
So you make this big decision, and then what happens? Training starts?
I start training. And even though I was 27, 20, whatever, my brother was still my coach, and he still called the shots. I was an adult male, had a job, had kids, but when it came to judo, my brother still called the shots. So I trained hard. I worked every day after work. I went and lifted, did my physical training, and I did judo at night. And when I could, I did judo twice a day. But I trained hard. And after training the first year, I ended up being number one in the country and went to the World Championships. And the truth is, that first year in judo, in '88, I traveled and trained more internationally than I did my whole 5-year number one career in the '70s.
Why is that?
Because in the '70s, we never traveled. Every other year we went to the World Championships. That's all the international judo we really had. And in the '80s, we had changed. We had different people running the program, and we traveled all over the world. To Japan,
Where did you travel besides Japan?
Well, Japan. I was all over Europe. I fought in the Dutch Open, the British Open, Germany, Austria, Hungary. There's a European tour that we went on every year.
Are you referring specifically to the tournaments, or they were actually a training camps that you took place?
Training in European judo. There's always a training camp following the tournament. It just makes sense to do that. So when you went to a tournament, there's a 3-day training camp afterwards. So it's a hard trip. It's a hard, long trip, because you're fighting, and then and obviously those kind of training camps, it's all tear down. You're not building anything up. You're just, beating yourself.
Beating each other up.
There's 2-a-day practices. You're fighting with the best guys in the world. Every fight is a brawl, and you're going like 15 rounds. It's tough. It's tough. So, and then the next weekend you're fighting again. You fight Friday and Saturday, and Sunday you got a break, and Monday you're training till Wednesday. After training, you travel, and you're fighting the next weekend. It's hard.
Rough. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question that indirectly relates to what you're saying. Is some might say that going through these training camps and seeing the same faces and then competing with the same faces over and over and over doesn't give you any advantages to win these tournaments.
Well,
I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. And I know I'm playing devil's advocate right now, but I know a lot of people will ask that.
Okay. So if we're transitioning from player to coach, when I first started coaching, I had a student, Hillary Wolf, who was a 2-time Olympian and junior world champion. She was a phenomenal athlete. I, again, trained her every single day. I went to Egypt with her, and she won the junior world championships. Within judo was a big deal. The first time I coached her internationally, she fought this Cuban girl named Savone, Aria Savone. I can't think of her first name. She's a wonderful player, beautiful. And her coach, and they had fought already 5 times. This is the first time I'm seeing Hillary fight her, and he's seen them fight 5 times. So the next trip, and this is when I wasn't the official coach. At that time, they were just filling in, coach here, coach there, someone. And the next 3 times they'd fight, I wouldn't have a chance to coach her. So how do I gain an advantage? So when I was asked to be the Olympic coach in '96, I decided that if I was going to do this, I was going to have to give the player at least an even play, being on an even playing field with the player they're competing against. So what is that going to take? That's going to take with me being at every training camp and every competition. I'm going to have to know every player inside and out. I'm going to have to know who they fought, who they beat, who beat them, and then I have to come up with a strategy of how we play them. So that's what I did. I actually went out and I raised about $50,000 to support me, because whatever the organization couldn't pay for, I was able to raise. And I was with Jimmy Pedro and other people at every single training camp and every single competition. And I had a book that was about 1.5 inches thick of every athlete, for every one of our athletes, that had every athlete in their division, what tournaments they won, who they fought against, who beat them, and who they beat. So I can compile a video, and at that time it was VHS. It wasn't what we have now. I carried a box with a TV and a VCR and tapes with me all through Europe. It wasn't fun, but nonetheless. So interestingly enough, and Jimmy would tell you this, when he was getting ready to fight the world champion at the match, in the back before the fight, we were able to open a book, see exactly how Makarov played, who beat him, and what the strategic plan was to fight him. And we had that. We went out there, and obviously it seemed to work.
Yeah, I think
so when I'm at training camps, I'm taking notes. I'm choosing partners. I'm letting, at some point I'm saying, you know what? You're not working with him anymore. You got him. If you work with him another 2 times, he's going to get you. I mean, there's strategies. I mean, it's just what you have to do. It's hard to turn someone down in the camp, but it may be that you don't go as hard. I mean, this is about winning, right? You're making a huge sacrifice to win the Olympics. You go to the training camp, you train really hard, but there are some guys that you're neck and neck with that at some point you're going to say, okay, I've seen enough of you. I know what I have to do. The more I see of you is going to benefit you and not me. Yeah, I mean, it's strategic. And again, you have to be at every training camp. You got to watch every fight, and you got to take notes and make sure the next time you do it, you strategize. How about this? What if we try that? Okay, this works. Yeah. This works. We know it. You don't have to do it again. We know it's going to work.
That's the first time Jimmy had a full-time coach, correct?
Outside of his dad, before that, but traveling with him everywhere, yeah.
Right, yeah.
I was about to say the same thing. This is one of the things that Jimmy really highlighted during our conversation. This was the first time when he felt that he had full support, there was a system in place, and he had a full-time coach devoted to him, ready to set him for success. I mean, I can't imagine the amount of data that you have to collect on every athlete that you coach to compile that system individually. And I assume that these things vary between each athlete, right? Because this is a strategic approach, right?
Well, judo is like every other combative sport. Styles matter.
Right. I mean, this is not only styles, but habits. Who you going with, the weight class, I mean, all of this will play a variable, and now you play this chess game, if you will.
And at that time, we didn't seat players like we do today. So there was a blind draw that I had to prepare for a number of different athletes. Today, the number one guy can actually have an idea who he's gonna fight down the line. At that time, we couldn't.
Well, not only that, but it's right now. I can take this and I can literally Google almost everybody on it at my fingertips, right? I mean,
there's a website. There's a website with all the tournaments, all the play. You got everything.
How many times it happened where you go to the tournament as a coach and you have no idea who your athlete is fighting?
Oh, well, it used to happen a lot.
Exactly.
It used to happen a lot.
Do you think that was advantage or disadvantage?
Oh, it's
one will say you walk.
It's a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage. But here's the thing: when you go to every competition and every training camp, you get to know the coaches pretty good. So it wasn't unusual for me to go up to a coach from a different country and say, "Have you seen this guy before?" You know, you develop relationships, right?
Right.
I mean, I couldn't do that before when I was go to a tournament, then 6 months later I showed up. When we start going to camps and then at nights the coaches get together, you develop relationships with people. And people come to me and ask me for things, and have you seen this guy before? And obviously, if someone's asking me, I know I can go to them, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to be there. You have to be there. So it made a big difference.
What you're talking about is the larger system with one goal of winning, essentially, right? It's like you have these training camps is one thing, going to tournaments, two things, making relationships with coaches, three things, knowing your competitors is another item of all of this. Now compile all of this information. Now you have information. Now you have to sort it out. You have to come up with a game plan,
right? And
then you execute.
Well, without question. And it's no different than coaching football, baseball. I mean, you get behind the scenes and you see people that watch videos all day. That's the skill set they have. And they're going to come up with a plan. These guys are students of the game. They're watching which way the guy's leaning, which way his foot's pointing, where his shoulder is up or down. They can recognize that by seeing that. That's the kind of thing I do. I can do that. Now, it's a skill set I have. Not everyone has it, but that's what I like to do. I like to do that. So, I mean, we need 30 people like me that are reviewing the athletes. How are we going to beat them? What's the game plan? I always tell my players, being a great player and not being smart, you end up being an average player. Being a good player that's smart, you can be a great player because you got to know how to play the game, and that's all part of it.
Yeah, strategy is a huge part of it.
Yeah. It always strikes me that in judo, it's always called a player. And in most other sports, especially combat sports, it's not. And there seems to be just such a different mindset for judo than other combatives.
Yeah, years ago, when judo was actually thriving back in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, Black Belt Magazine was a big supporter of judo. They used to come out with the top 10 players in Europe, Japan, and the United States every year. They had like this special magazine. And I remember my brother and I sitting at the newsstand in Evanston every day, going there waiting to see if it came out, because you never knew when it was going to come out. And sure enough, my brother was 1 and I was 2 one year, and we were, and it was funny. You got to see that. Judo for us, because it was an Olympic sport, it was always a sport. So we thought of it as a sport. Not that calling it a martial art is a negative. It's not. But judo was an Olympic sport. And actually, in promoting our club, we felt that being an Olympic training center, with the Olympics in mind, and that was a better way to market judo. So, I mean, we think of it as a player, as an athlete.
That's great.
Do you think judo is more of a sport than martial art?
In my mind, it is. I don't. Like I said, I don't find it a negative to call it a martial art, but to me, I always consider it a sport. When you think of it, when you look at a wrestler, wrestling's a sport, very similar to judo. The training is very similar. Judo's more technical. I mean, you got to cross-train, you got to lift, you got to condition, and you got to fight. And the fighting is physical. Very similar to wrestling. I mean, you wouldn't consider wrestling a martial art. I'll tell you what, though, if you get in a fight with a wrestler, you're going to find someone who's
you will.
tough as nails, right? I mean, right, they're animals. They're the blue-collar guys. And I used to see at college, the parties, the football players walked around, but no one messed with the wrestlers. No one messed with the wrestlers. They're crazy. No question. Yeah, it's semantics.
It's very clear that you have a lot of knowledge compiled over the years, especially as far as the coaching and your philosophy on judo and how should we approach it as a sport, from an athlete and from coaching perspective. What do you think are the major differences between the 88 Olympics, let's just say as a reference point around that time, to today?
Well, first of all, we the one thing we didn't have in 88 is one coach that was with us all the time, and that was, from my perspective, was missing. We had each other, and that's how we went. The team had each other, but there was a different coach. And even though my brother was one of the coaches, I didn't have the knowledge I had was knowledge that I got myself. I didn't have someone reviewing the tapes, watching all the matches, looking who's fighting who. We didn't have that then, so that was missing. on the other side, you know, we had a group of guys that were second to none. I don't think there was a better team ever than the '88 team. You know, with Kevin Asano, Joe Marshall, Mike Swain. I don't know if you've ever seen Mike Swain play judo. The guy's a phenomenon. He's great. Jason Morris. I don't know if you've seen Jason Morris. I'm very close with Jason. I talk to him all the time. One of the greatest technicians ever to play judo. Phenomenal. And then you had Bob Berland, who was one of the best technicians. All these guys medaled in the Olympics and medaled in the Worlds. These guys were favorites. These guys were favored to medal in the Olympics. So we had a phenomenal team. And I don't think, I don't think there was ever a better team, in my opinion. There were really good teams. You know, we had great success in teams, but I mean, those guys were phenomenal. Kevin Asano, I mean, he was just.
What's the best story from the '88 Olympics?
Oh, the best.
What's the one thing that
I can tell?
The one you can tell.
You can tell anything you want. Go for it.
So the best story. God, there were a lot of stories. Let me tell you just one fun time that was, judo is a sport that's not big in the United States. So when you go around, people don't notice you or anything. And this is just a story off the top of my head. We had the ability, when we were training in '88, at that time, United would allow you a free stop on the way to and from an international flight. So every time we went to Japan, we stopped in Hawaii, which I could tell you was a smart move.
Yeah.
Love Hawaii. So after we made the Olympic team, we trained in Japan, we came back, and, we just went out one night, and someone found out we were on the Olympic team. And the whole place went up in a storm. They had to stand up on a bar, and everyone was clapping and jumping. It was kind of surreal for me. I go, my God, it was being a athlete that's looked at like that. Only happened to me a few times, mostly with the Olympics, but it was quite an incredible event.
Are you saying that you didn't know the magnitude of the weight that being an Olympian carried?
At that time, it's funny. I didn't. So at that time, we didn't process. I made the Olympic team. It was my life goal. It was it's something that I wanted my whole life. And I can't tell you, when I ran a company, I always ask people I hired, tell me something you've sacrificed for that you wanted really bad. And usually I don't get an answer because people don't know what that's like. I sacrificed to make the Olympic team. I left my family at home, and without any guarantee I was going to make it. So I was so I felt so great to myself, I just didn't think about it. But when you go to processing at the Olympics and they give you a big shopping cart, you start going through a line, they start throwing stuff in your shopping cart, they start giving things away. And then we went to Disneyland and there was a ticker tape parade. All of a sudden, I'm looking around and there's thousands of people cheering, and it became to get a little real. But before then, I wasn't aware of it. It was kind of shocking. But I do understand, the accomplishment of being an Olympian, and it's something I hold close to my heart. I really do. I don't take it lightly.
What did it feel like being there at the Olympics? You stepping on that mat, and there's thousands of people watching you. Millions will know you later, and regardless of the result. I mean, that's an achievement of itself. What's your feeling like? What's that like? Your
whole life's work coming into one day.
Yep.
Culmination all in one day. I wake up and I look myself in the mirror and I say, did I do everything I possibly could have to be prepared for today? And if my answer is yes, I take a deep breath and I have a clear mind. I'm ready. And from the point you put your gi on and you're ready to fight, now mind you, you come in your sweats and you got your gi. When it's time to get ready to go, you turn into a warrior. Your face changes, your eyes change, everything changes. You're then prepared to do battle. it's a pretty unique feeling. And I would tell you, out of all the feelings I've missed from judo, not all of them are good competitions. Some of them are hard. But that one feeling of that feeling like a warrior before you get out on the mat and do battle. You're all by yourself. You're walking out there alone, just two people stepping on a mat. It's quite a unique feeling.
Can you see the 1,000 people watching you?
No.
It's just you and him.
Tunnel vision.
Have you ever seen the movie For the Love of the Game?
Yes.
It's with Kevin Costner.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when he was on the mound at first inning and he says, clear the mechanism, and all the noise goes away and you see that really, really straight line right to the plate? That's how it is. I mean, you're so focused, you don't hear anything. Doesn't matter. You don't know what's going on. And the truth is, and this is the interesting thing about a coach, if you don't have a coach that you're with all the time and knows you're not going to hear him. You're not going to pay attention to him. You need to have someone that every time you fight, he's there. So it's part of the way you fight. So that's another thing. And
that's one of the advantages that you guys had at 88, because right now coaches cannot vocally coach from the sidelines.
Yeah, but I didn't have a coach that I mean, there was no planning. There was no strategy for me. I went out there and fought. I knew the guy. I did what there was no thought process once I got the draw. So when I was coaching, when we got a draw, I sat down with each player. Okay, here's this guy. Here's what he does, and the next guy. And we start. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but you want to make sure you have an idea. And there wasn't a player that I didn't know. So you know that you have that confidence that you're going to go through that, and you have preparation. I mean, the guy I fought. The guys I fought, I didn't. I didn't know. I never fought before. So it was different then. Again, we had a great team and we were prepared and we trained hard. A couple of us had injuries, which is unfortunate, but 88 was a great team and a wonderful experience. Wonderful experience.
So you mentioned you step on the mat and there's this television, you 100% focus and you're sharp and you have one job, you become this warrior. What does the day look like prior to that? What do you do? Do you sleep at night? I don't know. Gary, would you sleep? You are
no,
at Olympics. Would you sleep? I don't know about. Would you?
No,
so
I have nothing to accomplish, and I still don't sleep.
So here's what I learned as an athlete, and I made sure as a coach that the night of the tournament is not the important night of sleep. It's the night before. That's the night you got to get sleep, because that's the night you can't sleep. The night of is really difficult to sleep. Now, mind you, if you're cutting weight, multiply that by 10, right? Yeah. Multiply, so the night before. So if you're cutting weight, you make sure you have a little extra water and a little extra food that night, even though you're cutting, and you get that really good rest, because you can't count on sleeping good the night of the tournament. And again, that's just as a coach, you need to know that.
That's incredible.
So what happens in the morning? What's the routine like at the
routine?
Olympics?
Usually you're again, when you're cutting weight, you're watching the clock a lot closer than as a heavyweight when you don't have.
It's a long day.
It's a long night, and you're waiting. You're counting the minutes because you're sucked down, you're dehydrated, and you can't wait to get on that scale. But in all cases, you want to get this process over with and get prepared to fight. And you're anxious to get on the mat. You're anxious.
How much time do you have typically between waking up, starting your day to the actual event itself? And I know it will vary based on the schedule of the events, but what's the dead time between?
Usually you're fighting before noon, so you're weighing in between 8 and 9 o'clock, and you're going to be fighting before noon. Okay. So you're going to fight pretty quick. So I mean, if you're cutting weight, you can't have a big meal. So you got to really have a plan on what you're going to eat, and you got to eat through the tournament then, because you're so depleted that you need to continue to maintain that energy, So you have to be prepared for, as a coach, you got to make sure there's protein bars or power bars or whatever you could eat when you're in that time. And when you have a break that's an hour, you got to eat a little bit, so you can put something in your system so you have some strength. Because when you're dehydrated, and some people more than others, you have to take care of that. Jimmy, for Jimmy, when I was coaching him, I weighed him every day. So we monitored his weight on a daily basis to make sure that when we were training, and I thought it was a huge advantage. Not everyone could do this, but Jimmy was training at training camps near his fighting weight when most of the Europeans were 15, 20 pounds heavier. So he was fighting them when they were at their strongest. And when he would fight them in the tournament, they'd feel so much weaker to him when he fought them because they were 15, 20 pounds lighter. And I thought that was a big advantage.
Sure. Is that hour break in between matches? Is that an eternity, or is it? Are you so focused that it doesn't really matter? You're just you're geared up.
It depends on how the match goes. There are matches that wear you out, and you're sitting down, and usually the next match comes really quick, no matter how long it goes.
Okay.
But it all depends, and it's a tough weight. It's a tough weight. You want to get back out there. You want to get back out there. Especially if you're winning and you're playing good, you want to get back out there.
Cool.
So you talk about all this, obviously stepping on the mat and focusing and all this preparation prior to that important event. What happens prior to the important fight? What goes through your mind, or as a coach, if the athlete just doesn't go his way? Obviously, this is pretty cut and dry. There is a winner and there is a loser, right? It's either you succeed or you don't. There's not much gray area there. What do you tell them? What do you say? What's the conversation like once they step off the mat?
Well, the first conversation is silence. There's nothing you could say. You got a player that's worked his whole life for this moment, and they've lost. What you want to do is you want to be there. So after the initial time goes by, the thing is that as a coach, if you're there all the time and you have committed to this athlete and you're part of them as their whole competition process, it's simple. They're looking to you. They're looking at you to be not comforting necessarily, but to be there for them. You can't sugarcoat it. They lost, for whatever reason, whether it was a bad call, whatever. At the end of the day, the match is over and you're not going forward, or you can't win. In the case that you're going to be in a repechage and continue to fight, you got to make sure that the athlete eats something, and gets focused on being prepared for the next match. When the tournament's over, it's a little different. And then you can focus on what we did and either what we did wrong. And again, if it's the Olympics and there's no tomorrow, at some point you say, listen, we came here, we prepared to win. We did everything we possibly could. Okay? There's nothing more we could have done. There's nothing more we could have done. And that's what it comes down to. You do the work. You never want to say, if I only would have. To me, that's a loser. You got to do everything when you make it there. And the athlete knows it. The athlete knows it.
And that's the sacrifice you talked about earlier.
Right. And that's what it is. What more could you have done?
That has to be a tough conversation.
It is, but you're so connected. You're just so connected. It's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard coaches say that when the wins of their students are more important to them than the accomplishments. The accomplishments they've made themselves, because you are so connected. If you put in that time, that seeing their students win is more gratifying than the actual wins that they had.
Well, here's the thing: is that as an athlete, especially in an individual sport, it's a completely selfish role. Everything's about me. I'm waking up. What do I got to do? Whether it's I got to cut weight because I used to have to cut weight when I was younger. I wake up. I got to make weight. I don't care I'm running. I'm going to train. That's what I have to do. And then I got to go. I have to do judo. I have to train. It's all about me. What am I going to eat? It's all about me. If someone was, you got to do this. Nope. I don't got to do anything. I got to prepare and I got to win. A coach is completely selfless. It's all about them. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? So I found my coaching successes far more gratifying for me. Seeing an athlete that you've coached, that you're completely involved with, stand on a podium and watch them look at the flag as they play the national anthem is a feeling that I can't explain to you. Mm-hmm. You know, and again, when I told you I talked to Jimmy on the anniversary of him winning, there's a feeling that we both had that day that I can't talk to anyone else about.
Right.
Only him and I could talk about it because we shared it. It is.
We don't have a lot of time left, but
okay.
If you could share that again, because we talked about that off air, and I think it fits with this part of the conversation of that experience that you and Jimmy had together.
Well, it was, so I know Jimmy since he was born. I used to fight his dad. Big Jim was, when I was younger coming up, his dad was one of the top players, and he was the one I had to overtake to win, and I did.
We heard he was very tough.
He still is. But he was the guy that I had to overtake. He was, and he fought my brother too. And we all became friends, very good friends. And Jimmy was coming up, and Jimmy used to come to our camps and train at our club when he was younger. And it was just kind of funny that in '88, our system of developing juniors, Jimmy and another athlete were our top juniors, and Jimmy came to Japan and trained with us. And since we didn't have a coach, I was put in charge of the kids. I wasn't happy about it, but I was. But Jimmy came and trained with us, and we were really close. So we were close with the family, and I was there in '96 when he took the bronze medal, and boy, was it exciting. So we were very close. And when I was picked to coach the team, I looked at a couple things because I knew the sacrifice I was going to make to do it. I looked at, what do I have in front of me? I have a guy in Jimmy that I believe is the best in the world. And the times he took third in the Olympics and the Worlds, one match he lost to a guy he has beaten before and beaten after, but he lost that day. What is it that I can do? What can I bring to get him through that, to get him to that number one spot? There's no doubt he was the best in the world, but I mean, it's one day. You got to win that day. He won the other days, but he didn't win that day. So in my mind, I felt that if I did everything I possibly could, and I could make the smallest amount of difference that would pick him up, that would be enough. And between '98 and '99, Jimmy won every major competition. People would tell you that the French Open, the Paris International, is the hardest tournament in the world. They allow, 4 Frenchmen in there, the top, it's the hardest tournament. It really is. Americans don't win that, and Jimmy won it in '98, beating the Olympic champion, for the gold medal. It was a hard, long 4 years, but it was a wonderful time for me. It was a wonderful time for me. And, I knew what I wanted to do. I learned things as we went, but, it became a great accomplishment for me, and not only for Jimmy, we had other successes, but Jimmy especially, because I was close with Jimmy for 20 years earlier. Mm-hmm. I knew his family, so it was quite exciting. The other thing is Jason Morris came out of retirement, was on that team also, which was good for me too, because I love Jason. Jason's a phenomenal judo player.
It's a great story. And you guys every year on the anniversary?
Every year I call him. And it was interesting because one year when I just first got on Facebook, I posted, pictures from that day and the video of him winning. And I didn't call him. And I copied it, I tagged whatever you do on Facebook. And about a week later, I talked to him. He goes, "What the hell happened? You didn't call me." I said, "Jimmy, I posted everything." I said, "Okay, I get it." So I realized Facebook's not enough.
No, it's not.
No.
But it's something that we enjoy together, and it's very personal to me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, and it's unique. Not a lot of people, I think, will ever experience something like that. Yeah. So it's great.
You guys have unique relationship over the years, and I'm really happy to actually see that you guys continue that. Often it happens when those paths kind of part ways, and you guys are the opposite. You guys actually narrowing this down and continuing this, while Jimmy is successful on the East Coast. You are here in Chicago area, and I mean, beautiful. Sir, what a beautiful stories, set of stories. What a beautiful career. Before we wrap this up, what in the world can we do to make judo better?
Oh God.
I know this is deep, and we don't have all day on this, but I'm just curious. What can we do? What can I do to make judo better?
Well, we need the right leadership, and we need the leadership to put the right people in place, and we have to start building it again, building it from the bottom up. It's gone so far. It's going to be a very, very big job to do. And I talked to Jimmy about it. And while I have no plan on ever being involved in national judo again, I would do it if Jimmy was involved and he asked me. Because just like Bobby, it's hard for me to say no to him. Mm-hmm. But I think that we would have to plan, and it would take probably 3 quadrenniums, 12 years, to get it back to where we need it, to where we're competitive, mm-hmm. and bring athletes in, train coaches, build a system that works together, not against each other. When you go to France and train there, the previous year's athletes, the world and Olympic champions they're on the mats with the players. Our guys are gone. Mm-hmm. We don't keep, there's nothing, we don't make an effort to keep people involved in judo. I mean, you got to do that. You have great athletes that leave the sport and they go and do something else. You need to keep them involved. They need to pass on their successes and their abilities to the younger kids. And that's what we have to do. We have to continue to do that. It's not rocket science. Jimmy and I both know exactly what we have to do. We just need the right people and we need some money.
Well, let's keep hoping that this is going to, there's a plan and execute so this goes in the right direction, because it would be a shame if sport like this continued disappearing.
I'll tell you, my nephews have a huge club in
sure do,
it's Cohen Brothers Judo Club, and they've got over 100 students. And before COVID, they'd have 70 kids on the mat. I mean, that's a big class, 70, 80 kids, mm-hmm. and kids fighting, and it's fun to see that. But it's rare. It's just rare around the country. You don't have that. Unfortunately, they like judo. Otherwise, there's nothing in the sport to keep there. The competitions are small. You end up fighting each other. It's very difficult.
Is the passion for the sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gary, we need to make our way up to the dojo. And
yeah, absolutely. Although my limited experience, I'm a little nervous, but I'll still go and have fun.
Well, I tell you what. The truth is we have a lot of guys that do jiu-jitsu and wrestle, and they want to play. We come on, we play. They play light with us, with the kid, with my nephew RJ and Aaron, and they get a little exposure to judo lightly. We have guys on the mat all the time like that.
Yeah, well, we've been doing it here for a little while. So I do have some experience, but with COVID and everything like that, those long breaks, man.
It's been hard.
Man, you're hitting the mat's a different story after 8 months.
I got to tell you something. In judo. The mat comes up awful fast when you're older. I'll tell you, it's whenever we ran our club, when we had someone who was a little older start, we start them very slow.
Oh, why didn't I get that kind of break?
Perhaps because Jim McGovern is your coach.
Yeah, maybe.
Jim's a good guy.
He is. He's a character.
Jim. We love. Yeah. He's a character. Yeah. Steve, before we wrap this up, how can our listeners find you? Maybe perhaps share some of the social media for your dojo, and how can they connect with you if they have questions, if they want to where they go?
Well, let me give you the email address. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head.
We can also post it in
post it for sure.
I definitely. I mean.
Well, it's Cohen Brothers, right? The dojo is Vernon Hills.
It's Cohen Brothers Judo Club, Vernon Hills. I could send you the links and everything. I'm happy to. They have some nice videos they made with kids.
I was watching some last night. Beautiful stuff.
Oh, yeah. And they've got, they start them when they're 3. I wouldn't do that.
That's
crazy.
My brother says, we got someone to sign up. I said, no. I'm teaching them. I don't want them at 3. 5 is tough. But they have a kids class, My granddaughter's 6 years old. She does judo. She loves it.
My head goes off to them because 3, that's a tough age. I mean, we start our kids at 5 in jiu-jitsu, but 3, that's
Yeah, they got them running around. Sometimes the mothers come on and help the kids and stuff.
That's
They've got a big Russian clientele, and the Russians think about judo a little different than the Americans do. They think it's it's a rite of passage. You got to do judo, and they love it.
Well,
That's
great.
great.
I mean, that's the way of
It's very good. It's very good.
Steve, thank you for spending your time, your morning with us. Thank you for sharing the stories. Congratulations on all the success so far, and there's so much more ahead of you. And we'll be watching on the sidelines as all of this is unfolding. And if there's anything we can help as far as developing judo here in Chicagoland, please let us know. I would be more than happy. I would be more than happy to be involved in that and help in any way I can.
Well, thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure,
We really appreciate it. Take care of yourself.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Raw Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.